it is very interesting to see how these three different styles can actually work together and make a unit, and everyone can actually sound like the Foo Fighters. That's pretty cool.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Foos Files. It's Dan here, hope you're all having a good week. Now, as I'm recording this, it's Tuesday morning here in the UK, and I'm reading about a Q&A Dave Grohl did last night with Questlove, who is the drummer for hip-hop band The Roots. And it was all about his documentary, Ladies and Gentlemen, 50 Years of SNL Music, which is basically about the history of Saturday Night Live's musical guests. So Dave hosted this discussion with Questlove at the Grammy Museum, and he joked, "This won't devolve into a conversation about kick drum heads and stick gauge," which is pretty ironic because this week's podcast is all about kick drum heads and stick gauge. Well, not quite, but it is one of particular interest for all the drummers out there. And that's an important topic in the story of the Foo Fighters because the band, of course, have had three modern greats behind the kit during their lifespan. So I'm joined this week by Boll3t, a musician, producer and songwriter who is the drummer for California-based tribute band Foos Fighters. Boll3t was in a couple of successful bands in his native Brazil before moving to LA, and as well as keeping up with the Foos Fighters' very busy schedule, he's also an accomplished artist and producer in his own right. In fact, you'll hear him talk about his solo album, which is due out this year. Now, every drummer, of course, has their own unique playing style, so we went quite deep into the nuances of Dave, Taylor and Josh's styles. In no way suggesting that one is better than another, but just looking at the differences in their approach, their technique, what they've brought to the songs over the years, and their influences too. So without further ado, welcome to the Foos Files podcast, Boll3t.
I started when I was 19, 18, I started to work in a studio back in Brazil, and I just loved all the production and the artist aspect out of it. I've been in original bands for forever. I was in two major bands, my major bands in Brazil. They were called Hecatombe, and that was a metal band. We have 7 albums released. The last one was 2020, but now that band is over. And then I had another band in Brazil called FX2 that sang in Portuguese. It's more like a pop rock, if it will. At least they labeled that way in there, but it's not exactly. It's more like rock. And we had 5 albums and a great run with both bands. Then 2015, I moved to Los Angeles and I started to play with a bunch of people. I did a lot of US tours with several different bands. 2019, I joined the tribute to the Foo Fighters called the Foos Fighters, and we've been playing nonstop ever since. I also, I write songs, I produce for other people, I mix. I have a studio here in LA, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Now, I am ready to release my solo album, which is gonna be, a bunch of songs. I wrote and recorded most of it, but I had a bunch of guests, and I'm really excited for that. So that's gonna be my main goal of this year, to dive into this solo career and go from there.
Sounds really exciting. What can you tell us about the solo album?
Well, for all the bands that I worked, I always was really active in songwriting and trying to, create a good image, because at the end of the day, my name was on it, even though it was a band, but I was really, really active And there's when you have a band, and I'm not complaining by any means, but a lot of times you are limited because you were just a part of it. So you want to have a direction, you want to go this way, and you have a bunch of ideas, but everybody has to agree on it. And you can't push your vision to other people. You have to understand you are like in a group. You were just a part of it. Co-writing and co-developing stuff. So a lot of the stuff that I wrote didn't really fit in those bands, but I really, really loved it. And I think those songs should come out that way. And because I'm writing only to myself, not to myself, but only myself, it was a little more free in terms of like genre and style and like, oh, we can't do that because people are going to think this way. So that freedom, once you start dwelling into that, it's so liberating. It's so good and it's so creative and artistic that I decided, to like, okay, so I'm going to have a project that I can only focus on my ideas and do them, no filters, and where I can really, push the creative aspect of it.
What genres are we talking then on this album? Is it a bit of a mix compared to, you mentioned you've played metal and sort of rock mainly before, so is it a bit more diverse, would you say?
Yeah, absolutely. Like my main genre, I would say it's rock, but it has some elements of metal, but also a lot of elements of pop music, because as I produce and I write, for the last couple of years, I started to dive into pop music and I love it. So, it's what I write is nothing like those bands, but I like when, for example, Linkin Park, when they cross genres, Bring Me the Horizon, and more recently Sleep Token. That kind of freedom of having a part that's super heavy and a part that's super catchy and poppy and full on electronic, that's the stuff that I'm writing.
And I guess when you've worked with so many different bands and you've produced and mixed records as well, you get to hear little things that you perhaps wouldn't have appreciated before, and then you've gone, oh, okay, I like that, but it's a bit kind of outside of my usual wheelhouse.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you start to work with music professionally, there are only two genres, which is good music and bad music. all the rest is aesthetics and technology, because everybody uses the same scales. There's melody, there's chord progressions, and there's rhythm. So every song is basically the same if you stripped out to its core. And the hardest part is to actually concentrate on a genre and like, oh, this kind of melody doesn't apply to this style because, the audience doesn't really like it. That's the hardest part.
Yeah, there's only so many chords or notes on a guitar or a piano, aren't there?
Yep, only 12 notes.
Yeah. So who would you say are your musical influences?
Oh, that's also huge. But my main core, I started with pop punk, Green Day and Bad Religion and a bunch of Brazilian bands back in the day, because, I was a teenager. I would identify with the lyrics and the aesthetics and whatnots. And then I quickly joined into the metal side, like Metallica and Iron Maiden. No, not a lot Iron Maiden, but they are huge in Brazil. So it's impossible for you to run away if you're into the metal scene. And then because I was also doing production, I started to really like the bands that was adding those aspects. For example, like Rammstein and Linkin Park back in the day changed my life, because all the metal people hated them and I just loved it and I just embraced it. And I was like, I'm not going to be ashamed to say that I like this because it has rap on it. No, I love the way it sounds. I love like the creative side of it. And then I started to listen to a bunch of country music and then pop. Like when I tell people that like I love Katy Perry, people are crazy. Like, what? And it's funny because when we are touring and I play my random playlist, one song is like Maroon 5, then comes Miley Cyrus, then Judas Priest, and they're like, "Oh my God, your taste is everywhere." It's like, "Yep, it is everywhere."
Yeah, well, when you strip those songs back to the fundamentals, they're all written by somebody on a guitar or a piano, just as Linkin Park would have done, just as Metallica would have done, just as the Beatles would have done, just as pretty much every songwriter would have done.
Oh yeah, and music is always cyclical. What came before inspire what people is writing right now, and it's like a common practice of the industry or every artist to pick really old songs and sample them and create something new. So it's a cycle, really. It is.
Yeah, because look how huge country music suddenly become, and then a few years ago, like Latino music was back in vogue, and then like metal came back in the like early 2000s, was it? As you say, it is completely cyclical. It never really it evolves.
Never really the same. Yeah.
Yeah,
Always evolving. Yeah.
yeah, sure. Now, at the time of recording, you've just come off a pretty hectic period on the road. I saw your Instagram post, which said something along the lines of you'd done 51 shows, 50 cities, 34 airports, 72,000 miles, or something
Oh yeah.
to those along those lines. So, what have the last 12 months been like? Tell us all about that.
Well, it's more like the last 3 years because our band, the Foos Fighters, we are growing so much in the United States, thank God. And it's nonstop really because the way we tour, it's like we usually only do weekends. So we're gonna have a show, like Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Sometimes a Wednesday, sometimes a Sunday, sometimes only Friday and Saturday. But then we will fly on the day before because the United States is so big that we have like 3 different time zones. So it's really impossible if you have a show, let's say in New York State, you cannot, there's no feasible time for you to arrive at the same day that you depart from LA or San Diego, where the band or half the band leaves. So we need to leave on the day before. Then we go there. We play like this 3 shows. We drive through different cities and then we come back. And then in the peak of summer, we come home, we stay for 2 days and then we go again. Because usually the cities are so far away from each other that it's not really feasible that you stay there. Sometimes that happens. Like, for example, in the beginning of last year, we stayed like 10 or 12 days in Florida. So we did like, 2 weekends. And then we went on to do the Chris Jericho cruise. So it's been crazy because people are hiring us all over the country in a lot of states that we've never been before. And it's just great. We're just basically visiting the whole country, meeting great people and playing good music. So it's been awesome.
Yeah, you called it the Breakout Tour, didn't you?
Yeah, that's every year we do a different title for our tour. Last year it was the Breakout Tour. The year before it was In Your Honor because of Taylor. And this year our tour is going to be called I'll Stick Around, which is basically a homage to the 30 years of the Foo Fighters and the 10-year anniversary of our band. So it kind of fitted.
Absolutely. Any particular highlights from the recent tour?
There was a lot of good shows. Playing the Chris Jericho cruise, that was pretty good That was pretty awesome because it was like, 4 days into a ship, only rockers and wrestlers. So it was really, really fun. Great music. There was there was us, there was Van Halen tribute bands. Then there was Fozzy, which is the Chris Jericho band, and then a bunch of other acts and bands, and it was just fun. That was pretty good. We did. We've been like 3 times to New York State. We did a lot of good shows. We're coming back to a couple of the cities. We played Daryl's House, which is a legendary venue. We play in one city in Pennsylvania. There was like 4,000 people. Then we played in a festival in Massachusetts. There was like 7,000 people. Overall, every show is great because the Foo Fighters fans, they're just the best. They love the music and they are really, diehard, and they just want to go and have fun and listen to the songs, and they come and they talk to us and they take pictures, and there's a bunch of little kids that get excited with the music. It's a great experience. It's really awesome because um I do original music forever, and there's a bunch of musicians that kind of hate on the tribute scene because they consider it, like cheating, or you're taking space out of the original music, which is not true at all. It's just a complete different scenario. Those people that go watch tributes, most of them, they just want to go out and have fun to songs that they already know. And the tribute market, it's a lot of smaller cities that the bigger bands don't go anyways. So let's say we play in a city random, like upstate New York, that if they actually want to go and see the Foo Fighters, they need to either fly or drive to New York City. That's like a 6-hour drive. Then you need to get hotels, and then you need to get tickets, and for the whole family usually. Whereas they can see us in basically their local venue or local theater, pay like, $30 for a ticket and have a good time because they know all the songs. We are not the Foo Fighters. They know we're not, but they're just having fun. So it's a complete different market. It's just great, man. I love it.
You raised an interesting point, actually, because what you said about people hating on the tribute band scene, a counter argument I'd have to that is that actually some of the best new music I've discovered is when I've been to see a tribute and they've put an original band on as the opening act. So they get all the footfall from people who are a fan of this band. So they've got this crowd that they wouldn't have if they were playing in a tiny venue with just their own material.
Yeah, that helps. That happens a lot, actually. We do a bunch of shows when some original bands, they are really clever and they discover exactly what you said, and they do market the whole show so people go and see them. And we played a bunch of times, for example, with a band from Boise called Town of Trees, and they put on great shows. We already played with them like 2 or 3 times, and there are times when people are actually going to see them and not see us. So it's really awesome because people go, they see your music, and then they have a great time. So it's really hard to market new music. And if you just go for that, a lot of people just don't want to go because they sometimes they just want to party. And we need, as entertainers, we need to understand that. So it's really hard. And just like you said, that's a great way of discovering new music.
So how did you come to join Foos Fighters?
Well, I used to go to a bunch of jams here in LA. Pre 2020, there was a lot of jams that it would go on a Monday at the Viper Room. And on a Tuesday, it would be the Whiskey A Go Go. And on the Wednesday, I think it was the Lucky Strike.
So you're talking
Yeah,
the most famous bars pretty much in Los Angeles there.
exactly. Yeah. So they would have this musician jams that you needed to, it was not like open mic or anything. You needed to get in touch with the person, and then they would give you a song or two, and then you would play with a bunch of other people, like no rehearsal, no nothing. Just like, okay, today you're gonna play, Breakout by the Foo Fighters or whatever song. They would do the theme nights, and they would just give you a song. Most of the time, sometimes you would never heard that song before. Sometimes it's just a classic. And then I would go to these jams to network to know other musicians. One of the nights I played an Iron Maiden song, and the guy on the guitar, he was Alan Sosa, friend of mine. He's Argentinian, pretty nice guy. He was in the Foos Fighters. And we just started talking. And then like 3 months later or something like that, he's like, hey, my band needs a sub drummer for a casino show. And do you want to do it? And I was like, let's go. Because back in Brazil, I used to play in a band that was a cover band, really. And we would play every night clubs. But one bar specifically asked us to do a tribute to the Foo Fighters. So we actually learned the whole set and did 3 or 4 shows for them. So I already knew most of the set anyways. And I was a fan. So I was like, yeah, let's go. So I learned. I went to San Diego, rehearsed with them, did the 2 shows. And like in the next 3 months, the guy had a kid and needed to leave the band. And they're like, oh, we like you. So do you want to join the band? I was like, yeah, let's go. That's how it happened.
And this isn't your first tribute band gig, is it?
No, back in Brazil, I used to do a Kings of Leon tribute band. That was pretty cool. And we did like 3 or 4 shows as a Foo Fighter tribute band back in Brazil. So but that's all my tribute band history.
Sure. And the upshot of it all is you've become one of the most sought after Foos tribute bands in America.
Yeah, in the United States, we are the bigger Foo Fighters tribute band. And that was because in 2020, one day, just Brent is our guitar player and our manager. He just received an email inviting us to do a TV show. And he thought it was weird out of the blue, but they found us on Facebook. They reach out to us. There's like, oh, we're doing this audition to this TV show that's not hosted, but created by Jimmy Fallon. And it's going to be on E! Entertainment and blah, blah, blah. So they did an audition with us, which was pretty much a Zoom call because the world was crazy in 2020. And yeah, we got in, we did the TV show, we won our episode. And after that, like the band just exploded. And we started, travel. And every year we're traveling more and more and more. Like 2023, I think we did 26 shows. 2022, we did 26. 2023, we did like 40 something. And last year we did 51 or 52, I think. And it's just growing. It's awesome. And a lot of the places are calling us back. We actually played in Cozumel on the tribute, and we played in Puerto Rico also. So we're starting to go international, hopefully.
The TV show you just mentioned, for anybody who wants to look it up, was called Clash of the Cover Bands.
Yes, it was 10 episodes, and every episode has a winner. And then there's also like a winner for the whole series, which was the Dolly Parton tribute, which was pretty good. Was impeccable. But yeah, our episode was against a tribute band from Blink-182, The guys were super nice, super good, and super talented. But luckily, we won our episode.
Yep, I think it's available to watch on YouTube for anybody who wants to look it up.
I think so. Yeah, it was on E Entertainment. So I think sometimes they broadcast it even there.
And what song was it you played?
So the first, it was a 90-second song that we played, Best of You. And then it was the second that they called a battle. It was 3 chunks of songs of 30 seconds. So on that, we did Learn to Fly, All My Life, and what was the other? And Pretender. Yes. So we did, Learn to Fly, Pretender, and we finished with All My Life, I think. It was the band who chose the songs. Those are the songs that were cleared by the Foo Fighters. That's what the production told us. They gave us the 4 songs. They're like, these are the songs. But we got to choose which one we would do the 90-second and which one would be the 3 30-seconds. So we decided to do Best of You. That's the longer song.
Okay. And one of the judges was Adam Lambert. So in terms of the Foo Fighters, there's a bit of like a 6 degrees of separation there with the Queen link, isn't there?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he was great. Yeah, of course. All the judges were pretty awesome. It was him. It was Esther Dean, who is a legendary songwriter and artist too, and Megan Trainor. Yeah, so we had to perform in front of them. They were like the audience, only them. There was a regular audience too. It was kind of small because of the pandemic, but it was pretty fun, and yeah, it was nice. It was a great experience to have.
I'm sure it was. So I wanted to go into your role being the drummer for Foos Fighters, because there's a lot to unpack there. As we know, the Foos have had not 1, not 2, but 3 drummers who, when it comes down to it, really, they're all-time greats, aren't they? So it's some feat, really, playing the drummer, where you've got Dave Grohl, the band leader, Taylor Hawkins was kind of the mainstay drummer for years, and then Josh Freese also is an absolutely amazing drummer. So yeah, there's a lot to unpack there about playing drums on these songs.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I mean, most of the people don't believe me and think I'm being political when I say that my favorite drummer of all time is Dave Grohl. But it really is, because the way that he plays the drums and the way that he envisions drums, to me, is like, that's how the instrument should be played. That's the language that I identify with, if you will. So having him as the band leader, he kind of creates this super high standard, which is also pretty interesting, because if you think of it, if you strip down the songs, none of the parts are exactly hard to play, but they are. You know what I'm saying? Like, technically, there's nothing crazy in there, but there is, if there's a paradox to that, you know? So it's simple, but it's complex at the same time. So yeah, it's a challenge, especially in terms of stamina. You have to be in shape to play those songs, to play that concert, because one song after the other takes a toll on you for sure. It has like this punk edge where everything is like pushed to the limit. It's pretty awesome. Like every drummer, if you play those songs, there's no way you're not gonna have fun.
Yeah. Interesting what you say about Dave and the technical side versus the that paradox that you talked about, really, because I hear seasoned drummers say that perhaps like Taylor had a bit more complexity and dexterity to his playing style, but what you garner from the various documentaries and stuff and from listening to the parts is that Dave just really excels at writing good drum hooks, which is a incredible skill in itself.
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree with that?
Oh, for sure. I think the differences are huge, but also complementary in a way, because just like you said, Dave has this approach from hooks and like this raw energy and power. And Taylor was really great. He was almost like a session drummer, kind of like too perfect, if you will. And also because of that, I think Josh is just the absolute perfect decision, because he's basically the combination of both. Like, he's super perfect, super technical, but he's super raw, also super powerful. I think it was a great fit.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure if I said it loud enough. Mr. Josh Freese on the drums tonight. Okay, not to mention, he was in fucking Devo for 26 years. This motherfucker. That's right.
I saw them last year here in LA, and oh my God, it's so much energy and so much power, and it was a great match. I think the band sounds great with him. It is very interesting to see how these three different styles can actually work together and make a unit, and everyone can actually sound like the Foo Fighters. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to qualify really for people listening by saying what we'd never ever do is it's not a comparison saying that one is better than the other, because it is like comparing apples and oranges, and every drummer has got their own style. But yeah, Dave is that. He's a powerhouse, isn't he? He grew up idolizing John Bonham from Led Zeppelin, which is where that power comes from. And then Taylor had such an eclectic range of influences, and a lot of his favourite drummers were from like the 70s and 80s, like Roger Taylor and Stuart Copeland and Neil Peart and Phil Collins. And I guess perhaps that's maybe why he developed a little bit more of a groove to his playing.
That's true. Yeah, there's you could see like he were into progressive phrasing, if you will. You know, he used a bunch of like paradiddles and different styles, more like just like you said, more like the 70s vibe. And to complement what you said, like, no musician is like the other, in my opinion. Of course, we had a big problem in the way that the production of the 2000s and up went, because they started to quantize every drummer and edit everything to the grid. And what really that does, it takes the personality out of the playing. Because some players, you know, they're going to play the groove and their snare slightly behind, but their kick is a little forward, and that nothing is wrong, it's just different, and it's a personality. And that's why you still love to go and see people play live, because you actually feel the differences. And comparison in music does not do any good to anybody, except, of course, when you are just analyzing styles and understanding, oh, okay, this musician sounds better for this kind of music because he plays this way. And the three of them are great. And like, everybody's really is great if you really think of it. And I quickly learned that when I was really young and I would work in the studio, and I would hate some, you know, traditional music style from Brazil. And then they would show up to play, and the guys were like awesome, and they played super intricate patterns, and I was like, oh, I cannot hate on this because these guys are great. You know what I'm saying? And so, yeah, this is pretty cool.
It's interesting what you said about the editing and it kind of taking the personality out of the instrument really, or the musician, because particularly with drummers, I've got limited experience of playing in bands, but the best drummers tend to play off feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you over edit it or overproduce it, that gets completely stripped out, doesn't it?
It does. It's completely gone. And also like with implementation of the click track, because everybody was recording separate. So you have to have a click. Like if you listen to the Nirvana albums, there's no click in basically any of the songs. In the 70s, nobody used click. Like all the metal band, the traditional metal bands, they don't use a click track. So what that does, it's like when you're playing the verse, for example, you slow down a little bit. And when you come to the chorus, you speed up a little bit. And then the breakdown, we go like super slow. So there's really all that fluctuation that makes a song, alive. And when you play the songs to a click track, everything is on the same speed. I mean, you can automate, and a lot of people do, but most of the people don't. There's only like one click track, and that strips away, the fluctuation, because you are holding to that tempo, which makes the production aspect a lot easier. Nowadays, you're gonna sync lights to the click and sync, the video, whatever. It makes the production a lot easier, but musically, I think we lose a really good aspect. So every time I play in bands and we don't have that, I really try to fight for not playing with a click. And because it just keeps the music alive. And like in the Foos, we don't use a click track. We don't use tracks at all. It's just the five of us. We plug the instruments. We play the songs. That's it. And I think there's really power in that, because the emotions and the emotions that all this tempo variation, and you can also have the chance to read the room. For example, if you're playing in a song and you see that they are, wanting more, you can push up the song a little faster, and you can match the energy of the room, that if you are with a click, you can absolutely not do that.
Yeah, and I think also like a band like the Foo Fighters, when you go and see them live, while they are all absolutely amazing musicians, there is something about them. They're quite imperfect as well. It's raw. It's a bit dysfunctional sometimes. They're probably not dysfunctional is not the right word, but you kind of get what I'm saying. It's not meant to be perfect, is it?
Mm-hmm. It's not. And really, like, because when you put things too perfect, it gets boring. There's this great video of the YouTuber Rick Beato where he would take some John Bunyan clips and put it to the click, and it just destroys the groove. And he's like, this is what you guys are doing with every new songs. And it's not about being perfect. Music is about conveying emotions. So I don't want to go to a show and see, oh my God, he hit all the notes right. No, I want to feel something. I want to feel an emotion, and not like see if you can play 17,000 notes at 185 beats per minute. So it's not supposed to be perfect anyways.
Another thing that struck me about Taylor, lastly on the kind of drum nerd out bit, is his kit seemed to be absolutely huge. Like he'd have this mad cymbal set up, and he's I could be wrong, his kit just seemed to be like bigger than the one that Josh plays on.
That's a very interesting question. I'm under the impression that Josh's is bigger, but the way that Taylor sat, it's absolutely unconventional. I could never do that. Like, because he has the small tom really high, and then he raises the cymbal, and then he would turn the cymbal almost like vertical, and he has the percussion aspect. You might be right. His kit might be. I need to double check on that because I have pretty bad photographic memory. So like if I try to recall the drum kits from just like the image, I cannot tell which is which. I can't, but know which one is bigger.
I'm not a drums expert, by the way. Maybe it is a perception because you just say the way he's got it configured, and the way he sat at the kit.
Yeah, and also could be a perception for me because Josh plays with 2 kick drums, so maybe we just have those perceptions. Yeah, but you're right. I will double check on that because now I'm curious.
Me too. I could have got that completely wrong, but you mentioned you've been a fan for a long time. What is it about the Foo Fighters and their music then that you love that really resonates with you?
Oh, that is, I mean, I'm a fan of Dave Grohl ever since Nirvana, big time, because I was there when those records were released. So those, like, Nevermind was a huge part of one of my biggest influences when I was starting to play. And then, of course, Kurt passed, and then right after he released, so I was into it, and they were all over MTV, and they also released their bangers very early in their career. So the color and the shape is just incredible, and I remember watching those music videos on MTV, and I was hooked. I mean, the songs are great energy, very well written, super catchy melodies, very complex lyrics, which is something that I love, and you don't see a lot in rock. I mean, you kind of do, but it's different. The way that Dave writes is he's not trying to follow the formula of a hit, if that makes any sense. He's not really concerned about repetitions or putting super easy words in there. He would put like some words that might not fit, or you have to adjust the melody a little bit, adjust at least the stresses and the syllables, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
To you. So I really love that it was complex. And it's funny because the way that he writes songs, as a drummer, I think it's different than the way that other people does, I guess, because the way that he sees, the dynamics of the songs and the stops and the progressions and the counter rhythms that are going below, I was sold from the very beginning.
Have you got a favorite song to play when you're out with the band?
To play, I guess it's Run. I just don't know. That song has an energy that's like so good. But all the songs, I mean, Pretender is pretty fun to play. All of them are really. Yeah, Run is the one that comes first, because I don't know. Oh, Something for Nothing. I love to play that song because it has a slow build up. It goes growing and growing. I really love to play that song.
Yeah.
It's funny because we always talk about that. Like, we basically play the same songs 50 times a year, and we never, not once, we get bored. It's fun every time because the songs are just too good. So the arrangement is good. It's like there's no way for you to get bored. Or it's like, oh my God, I have to play the same set again. No, I'm actually excited because it's fun to play. It's just good arrangements and very well written parts. So yeah, I guess I'll stick with Run. Run is the one that I'm really excited when it starts.
Yeah, I can see why that might be a drummer's choice, to be honest with you. So, do you change the arrangements around the way that the band does? For example, they play times like these a lot differently now to the way that it was recorded. It usually starts with Dave and Rami, and then My Hero, sometimes he'll play it with a slow start and bring the band in later. And there's various songs that they've chopped and changed the arrangements. Josh put a new bit in on, I think it's Monkey Wrench. He put a new bit on the recent tour, and My Hero had the full electric version. They've got an outro bit that they do as well. Do you kind of look at those and copy those and chop and change the arrangements a little bit too?
A little bit, yeah. We try to do them kind of what they do. So it's hard because we want to do what they do live to some extent, but to some extent we play the songs like the record.
Yeah.
And we also had our spin to it. So for example, the introduction of Josh, he did like a big instrumental part in the middle of All My Life. We incorporated that to our show. So because it's just too good, it's like really awesome. And times like these, we play like the record basically. Sometimes Nick would come only the guitar and he would play the two first verse and chorus,
yeah,
all by himself. And then the band would come in. But we don't usually do that. So we kind of found for every song our version, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So we would take the way that they do live, we do a little bit of a spin that makes sense because we play a show. So we think about the dynamics, we think about like, okay, this part we need this part we need that. So we try to mimic what they do live, with the exception that we do not play covers or renditions because it works for them as an original band, but for us as a tribute, people are there to see Foo Fighter music. But yeah, like we tried and make our, so for example, you mentioned My Hero. We play My Hero as the record, but when the song ends, we keep doing the chorus so Nick can interact with the audience. And he would go out and he would ask for little kids to sing the chorus. It's pretty awesome.
That's cool.
Yeah.
There's a really cool video on YouTube, by the way, of you playing Best of You wearing a GoPro, and you put in the caption that as a big Taylor Hawkins fan, you were longing to do a cover version of that song.
Oh yeah, I did that. It was like a million years ago. It's awesome. I mean, the drumming on Best of You, I believe is the most complex of the popular songs, at least. Like the drumming in that song is just absolutely insane. It has like the grooves and the drum fills. It's really fun to play every time. And yeah, I was a fan ever since that album came out. I still have all my CDs. That was a double CD. Pretty good.
Before we wrap up then, we're at the start of recording. You've mentioned the solo album. What other plans have you got for this year, particularly with Foos Fighters?
Well, we are having already a bunch of shows in the books. We are going to go to Florida, and we are going to go to New York upstate. Then we already have some North Carolinas, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, Virginia, Ohio. There's already a bunch of shows confirmed, but I'm pretty sure that a lot more dates are going to go. So yeah, we're traveling the country. I am releasing my album, so I'm pretty excited about that. I have a music video that it's already done. All the mix is already done. So I'm really excited for that. I probably gonna think about touring with that also. And yeah, so I'm also like working with projects with other people, mixing, producing, and writing. So yeah, it's a exciting 2025 ahead of us.
Yeah, busy man.
Oh yes.
Well, Boll3t, it's been an absolute pleasure to chat to you, and good luck with the solo album. We'll be keeping an eye out for that. Do you want to just finish by telling people where they can find out more about your music?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It was absolutely awesome to talk, talking about great music and great musicians. It's why we do this, right?
Yeah.
It's why we love music and how we get inspired for great art, really. Yeah, so you can find me, on the social medias. Instagram, it's Boll3t. I'm on YouTube also by the same. I have my website, which I'm updating right now because I'm gonna shift to, as opposed to be like a musician site, it's gonna be about my solo music now, and it's boll3t.com. So yeah, I'm pretty easy to find because I have the number 3 on the way that I write my name, and you just write it that way, and I'm gonna be there.
Thanks to Boll3t for his brilliant musical insights there. I hope you enjoyed it, and if there are any drum aficionados listening who can clear up our little conundrum, is Josh's kit bigger or smaller than Taylor's, then feel free to drop us a line, foosfilespod@gmail.com. One more thing before we go this week, I've just launched a Foos Files email newsletter where you can sign up for free weekly bonus content and a bit of behind the scenes information about the podcast. And there's a link right at the top of the show notes if you'd like to sign up. Thanks again to you, the listeners, for all your support. Foos Files will be back next week. Take care.